Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us on this Memorial Day to host our first Memorial Day commemoration here at the New York State Veterans Cemetery, Finger Lakes. We've been blessed with a beautiful day today. I would like to tell everyone that's in the sun to be careful, and if you need some water, there's water over here so you stay hydrated. We will start our ceremony with the invocation with veteran. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Joel Evans, Executive Deputy Commissioner of the New York State Division of Veteran Services, and it is a pleasure to be your Master of Ceremonies here. I see a lot of familiar faces from a couple years ago, and I'm glad you're here to join us. We'll start with Reverend Matthew Binkowitz with the invocation.
Gracious God, on this Memorial Day weekend, we remember and give thanks for those who have given their lives in the service of our country. When the need was greatest, they stepped forward and did their duty to defend the freedoms that we enjoy and to win the same for others. O God, you yourself have taught us that no love is greater than that which gives itself for another. These honored dead here gave the most precious gift they had, life itself, for loved ones, neighbors, comrades, and country, and for all of us here today. Help us to honor their memory by caring for their family members they have left behind, by ensuring that their wounded comrades are properly cared for, by being watchful caretakers of the freedoms for which they gave their lives, and by demanding that no other young men and women follow them to a soldier's grave unless the reason is worthy and the cause is just. Holy Father, help us to remember that freedom is not free, that there are times when it is a cost and a dear one indeed. Let us never forget those who paid so great a price to ensure that freedom would be our lasting legacy. Though their names may fade with the passing of generations, may we never forget what they have done. May we never forget their worth, their sacrifice, and their generosity. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. And now, our Commissioner, Commissioner Viviana DeCohen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call up the members of our Department of Veteran Service staff that are here because truly we're so honored to be here. Staff members, come on up, DVS team. We are going to welcome you together. This has been such a wonderful team effort. We could not have done this. I want to welcome all of you on today to our governor, the Honorable Kathy Hochul, our first gentleman, to all of our honored guests, our distinguished members, to all of you in your respective places, our outstanding veterans who are here, and even to our children. We want to honor you on today. Today, our governor, the Honorable Kathy Hochul, is the first governor of this great state to honor us today on this sacred day as we gather here at the first New York State Veterans Cemetery. And let me do what I need to do. I'm at the age I have to take off the glasses to see. Our hearts are truly filled with reverence on today gratitude and a deep sense of duty to all of you here, to the team members who are here, to all of the townsfolk. You all have made this happen, and you have made it even more special on today. We've come today to honor and remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, those brave men and women who laid down their lives in service to our great nation. This Memorial Day, we are standing on hallowed ground in this solemn place, this space that we pay tribute to the selflessness and the unwavering courage to those who fought to preserve our freedoms and protect our way of life. A reminder that freedom, liberty, is not free, but comes at a great cost. The New York State Veterans Cemetery stands as a testament to our commitment to honor our fallen heroes. It is a place, a safe place of solace and reflection where family members and friends and so many of you who've been coming here for so long, and finally we are here now with our fellow citizens like our own Mitch Rowe, our veteran whose dad is here and has been coming here for years to pay respects and here to remember and find comfort. As the commissioner and the team of the Department of Veteran Services, we pledge that we will ensure that this sacred ground receives the utmost care and reverence. We will uphold the solemn duty to provide a dignified burial for our fallen heroes, a final act of gratitude for their sacrifice. Truly, may we never forget. Welcome.
And now our Cemetery Director, Bill Yale, will lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you are able, please remain standing as we finish for our national anthem. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deputy Commissioner Benjamin Pomerantz with the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may all be seated. It is with great pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce our first speaker, a true champion for veterans in New York State, our Governor, Kathy Hochul.
Thank you very much, everyone. I want to thank Joel Evans for performing the responsibility of being our MC today. He's doing a great job. Thank you, Joel. Also, I don't know if you know the story when you see Reverend Director Viviana DeCohen stand here. You couldn't possibly know her heroic story. She is a United States Marine. She served in Okinawa. She is one tough lady. I want to give her a special shout out for her service to our nation. And thank you for continuing your service to our nation and to our state in particular by accepting the responsibility of being the caregiver for all of our veterans, because they are part of our family. And we both agree that we owe them, yes, shelter and education, help if they needed, supportive services, but above all, they deserve our love when they return. So I want to thank you for being the person who does that so beautifully for us. I'm so proud. Reverend Binkowitz, I want to thank you for coming here as pastor at St. George Orthodox Church, reminding us of the presence of God in our lives and that we should be walking with gratitude every day. I want to also thank the elected leaders who are here, starting with our Assembly member, Jeff Gallahan, whose wife Lynn and I just had a wonderful tour of a place that is extraordinary. The birthplace of Memorial Day. Where else would we be on Memorial Day but the birthplace right up in the road in Waterloo. So thank you for joining me. Thank you, Assembly member, for joining us here today. Brian Mantelo is here, our Assemblyman. Let's give him a round of applause as well, Assembly member. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Phil Palmisano is here, Assembly member. Great to see you again, Phil. There's a blast from the past here. Senator Mike Nozzolio, and I want to thank him for all the work he did to bring this vision of having New York's first state veterans cemetery right here. So I want to thank him for his dedication in getting this finally finished. We also have Mitch Rowe, the county manager of Seneca County. I want to thank Mitch for being here as well. And Michael Enslow, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Seneca County. Anybody else? I'm sure he's on his way. Okay, I'm sorry. Important job. I come out of county government, as well as town government. The Assembly member and I were sharing stories of what it was like to be town board members for many years. So I cut my teeth in local politics. Also blessed to have someone who's been at my side for how many years? 39. A long time. My husband, Bill, 39 years of marriage. And we know this area so well. Because Bill, and I want to recognize Brian Stratton, because I was thinking about some journeys Bill and I have made here on the canal, all the way from Buffalo to this very lake, and camped at Sampson State Park. That was a long trip. You have to be really close to your spouse to do that in a little boat on the Erie Canal, but we had a wonderful time. And also the keeper of our beautiful parks, the person who's responsible for what are really national treasures, and he's right here in the flesh, and that is Eric Kulisade. I want to thank him for joining us as well. It is a high honor for me to be here, though, on this occasion. Again, I've come here for recreation, to find peace of mind, sometimes to find an opportunity to support our local economy, stopping by Three Brothers and other little wineries here. So I've ridden my bike on your highways, I've been on the waterways, I've walked through your small towns in this beautiful county, this beautiful part of our state. But today is unique. Today is unique. And we must remember it is a solemn day. You may have a picnic waiting for you at home, perhaps not, but it is a solemn day, and let us never forget that. It's also a day of remembrance, a day of reverence, but also a day of reflection and a day to recommit to our values as American citizens. So we are here, we think about what President Lincoln said at the dedication of a perhaps better-known cemetery, Gettysburg. I've been there many, many times, taken tours countless times because I love military history, the story of our nation, how we fought to preserve the Union. And he said he recognized the people had given the last full measure of devotion is to sacrifice your life. So today we honor those who had that selfless devotion to serve. Now, some were called to serve. Some were voluntary during peacetime, some enlisted during wartime. There's a whole list of reasons, many different experiences have brought people to this place. But I will say this about this part of our state. This area is steeped in military history. We know the people are so proud of the legacy of the work that was done, whether it's the submarines being tested on the lake right here, the military base, what happens here, the Naval Training Station, the Air Force Base, it all happened right here in this great county. That's why we bleed red, white, and blue here. This is part of our DNA as New Yorkers, but particularly those who are so proud to call this part of the state our home. And literally hundreds of thousands of service members trained right here. I'm sure some of your grandparents have stories, and even some of your parents have stories, and it's extraordinary. As I mentioned, we're just literally 10 minutes south of Waterloo. What is so significant about the first Memorial Day is that it was a way to commemorate those who fought in a very difficult time in our nation. I don't know if people know, the whole purpose of Memorial Day was to honor those who died during the Civil War. That was a time when our country was fractured. Brother fought brother, father fought son. We were so divided as a country. It was really a test whether or not we would survive this great experiment known as democracy, the one that our founding fathers so believed in. But would it endure the test of time? Could we survive a civil war? And Memorial Day answers the question, yes. Yes, we survived. And that is why just right up the road here, the rest of the nation followed the lead of little Waterloo in saying this is a time to reflect on the sacrifice, the loss of life, the families torn apart at that time, but brought together in a sense of trying to heal the loss of a loved one. But that history continued on as we fought other battles. And I think about those other battles. And again, there's many connections to those. Our country is almost 250 years old. You realize that? Many battles were fought right here in our state. Saratoga, Battle of Brooklyn, Ticonderoga. Take the time over the next couple of years to tour these sites. No other state can lay claim to so many significant sites where we had, as part of our history, our forefathers who fought to fight for the freedom from an oppressive nation known as Great Britain. But also we fought in World War I, the beaches of Normandy, Omaha, where my husband's father landed at Omaha Beach. We also had people fighting Pearl Harbor, people in the South Pacific, like Simon Gallagher's father fought. I had uncles fighting in Korea. I had 4 more uncles fought in Vietnam, and I'll tell you about this. Are there any veterans from Vietnam here today? I want to tell you this. Our country owes you so much more than you received when you came home. I know that from my uncles. My uncle was told when he came through the airport in San Francisco on his way back, don't wear your uniform because you might be verbally assaulted. You never got the thank you, and I think that's a black mark on our nation, the way we treated those returning from Vietnam. And I have dedicated my life in honor of my uncles and those who had come to a country that wasn't as warm and welcoming as we have been subsequently. So accept an apology from a grateful nation, long overdue. We also think of the families left behind. There are people buried here. This is hallowed ground. People use that phrase often, but it is truly hallowed ground. It's sacred ground. Since World War II, people have been brought home to rest here. More recently from Iraq and Afghanistan. And when I served as a member of Congress, not representing Seneca County, but nearby Ontario County and many other beautiful upstate counties, I wanted to be on the Armed Services Committee for one reason. I wanted to be able to see and experience what men and women in uniform were dealing with, so I'd be better prepared to deal with them when they came home. I went to Afghanistan. I went to 5 bases. I sat and talked to people from New York in the mess hall. I asked them what their greatest fear was. And I assumed it would be the Taliban that were looking to attack them just right over the horizon. Their biggest fear was coming back to America, being homeless, not getting a job, being concerned they'd have mental health challenges, and that broke my heart. Their across the world, away from their family and loved ones, and they have those worries on their mind. Hopefully no longer. That was back in 2011, 2012. We've made a difference in their lives, but we have so much more to do. And so we are the home of over 700,000 veterans. We'll honor our veterans, those living, and I honor those here today. We have a day in November. We'll be back out there again speaking about those and our responsibility, our moral obligation. But in honor of those who died, which is what Memorial Day is all about, I simply ask us this. Can we recommit to that audacious and bold idea of having something known as the United States of America? Can we put the focus on the word united once again? That's what our founding fathers dreamed of. It's been tested. We've come through some time. We've had a civil war, my friends. But we always pull together. And I guarantee everybody in this crowd does not exactly have the same political beliefs, and you may not watch the same cable TV shows. But we are all joined in the knowledge we are so blessed to be in this place, in this moment in history. This is the United States of America. But it only stays united if we continue ourselves to be soldiers, some in uniform, but some civilians, soldiers to protect the fundamental freedoms that our founding fathers envisioned. They've endured for almost 250 years. That torch is passed to us to ensure that it endures during our lifetime, and we pass that torch to our children, and they pass it to their children. So 250 years from today, we are still the United States of America. Let's commit in honor of those buried here today that we'll go forth and do that together as one. Thank you very much. May God bless all of our veterans, and may God bless the United States of America.
I would like to take this moment for our Commissioner, Viviana De Cohen, to present our challenge coin to Governor Hochul.
I don't know if you all know the meaning behind the challenge coin. Someone actually took one out of their pocket a couple of weeks ago, and they were proceeding to slam it down. I had mine in my bra. So mine hit the table first. So whoever puts down their challenge coin first, the other person has to buy them a drink, and if you don't drink, has to buy them dinner. But truly, I want to tell you something. I know the challenges that so many of you have had. I have been going across the state and telling people on behalf of this great governor, you know, when you do the etymology or the archaeological type of the word service, all of the meanings are harsh. None of them are fun or fuzzy. The meaning of the word service, the etymology of it, is to travail, as in labor, as in pain, to hit, to strike, to batter, and daze, and striking down old ideas and old regimes of who could serve, of who would serve. Service, when we're saying thank you for your service, we are thanking you for enduring the hardships, for embracing the suck and doing it anyway, for walking into the smoke voluntarily, the fire, and not knowing if you're going to come back. And these are also challenges, Madam Governor, that you have taken on. When I met her, she was Lieutenant Governor, and I saw her out in the field serving veterans. That's how we met. She was already doing this. And so this challenge coin on today is for you.
And now let us welcome Assemblyman Palmisano.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Evans. Thank you, Governor Hochul, for being here and for your very gracious remarks. It's certainly a privilege and honor to have you here today. So thank you and welcome. And thank you, Commissioner Cohen, for being here as well. Thank you, all of you, for being here as we pause to honor and remember our fallen heroes who paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect us, our families, and our freedom. This is, I believe, is a special Memorial Day Obviously, we're just down the road from the birthplace of Memorial Day in Waterloo. But this is our first ceremony as this hallowed ground being our state's first veterans cemetery. And on that note, I would really like to say a special thank you to Senator Nozzolio, Bill Yale, Mitch Rowe, and all those who volunteered their time and hard work to make this special designation happen. Also, a special thank you to Seneca County for your special stewardship of this hallowed ground. Thank you. I would also like to, this hallowed ground will serve as a special, fitting, and final resting place for the brave men and women who served us to protect us. You know, on Memorial Day, many families gather together just to get together, to get away from the stress of work and family concerns, and that's okay. But it's important that we take this time to pause and remember. You know, since 2010, I've attended 4 military funerals for young men and women in my district. Zach Smith of Hornell, Devin Snyder of Cohocton, Christopher Scott of Tyrone, and Ryan Jane of Corning. It's a very stark reminder of the dangers of war and the sacrifice that those young men and women take on to protect us, our families, and our freedom. You know, I see a young man in the back, and whenever I go to Memorial Day ceremonies, I see young people, and that's important. I mean, how often are we looking for heroes and role models for our children to look up to? Young man, and to everyone here, we have to look no further than the names inscribed on those stones out in that hallowed ground. But it's incumbent upon us, the adults, to teach them and tell them stories so they know and so they carry on this important tradition. You know, I'm still touched by an encounter I had at a veteran at the Bath VA one day. I went in there to say thank you, and I went up to the gentleman. He was in a wheelchair, and his head was kind of to the side. He slouched a little bit, and I went up to him and I said, "Thank you, sir, for your service." And he propped right up, put his head right up, and he goes, "You're welcome." And I would do it all over again. Very powerful words that really reflect the selflessness and commitment of those veterans who fought and continue to fight to serve us. And we must remember that we pay tribute to the memories of those we lost by continuing to say thank you and showing our appreciation to our veterans and military men and women who are still with us. So as Memorial Day passes us by and we go on with our summers, let us continue to try to do more to honor our veterans and our military. And you may ask, what can I do? You can volunteer at the VA. You can visit a veteran in a nursing home. If you're a student, you can work with your classmates to put cards together or care packages to our veterans in the VA or send in packages overseas. If you have a neighbor who's a veteran, you can mow their lawn, bake them cookies, cook them a dinner, shovel their sidewalk, anything like that. Say a prayer for them. Or it can really be just as simple as walking up to a veteran or someone in uniform and saying, "Thank you for your service," because they never have and they never will hesitate to lay down their lives to protect us, our families, and our freedom. And if I could just close with this quote, I think it really kind of sums up what we're all doing here today and what we do every Memorial Day. It's an inscription that appears at the entrance to an Allied cemetery on a remote World War II battlefield. And it asks its visitors to do this. When you go home, tell them of us and say, "For your tomorrow, we gave our today." May God bless our fallen heroes and their families. May God bless our veterans. May God bless our active duty military and reservists. May God bless all of you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
And now, Assemblyman Gallahan.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all the dignitaries and guests that are here today, but especially our governor. It's great to see you here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here and be with us today. Thank you so much. It's much appreciated. I'd like to thank Commissioner DeCone and Deputy Commissioner Joel Evans for being with us today and all your work to make Sampson the first New York State Veterans Cemetery. Our community welcomes you and will do everything possible to make this a success, an example for other communities throughout the state. This cemetery began with an idea from the public, and Senator Mike Nozzolio championed that with the idea into a reality that we see here today. And without his vision, his leadership, and his relentless and aggressive pursuit, the cemetery would certainly look a lot different. We gather here on this day to pay tribute and honor the courageous men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice while serving our great nation. On this Memorial Day, we remember, we reflect, and offer our heartfelt gratitude to those who laid down their lives to protect the freedoms we hold so dear today. In our remembrance, let us express our unwavering support and gratitude for the families who've had to endure the loss of a cherished loved one. Forever in their memory remains etched in our hearts. On this Memorial Day, we pay homage to our lost brothers and sisters and express our never-ending gratitude and support to those they left behind. Memorial Day is also a time for families to connect and reflect while appreciating the blessings of our country's freedom. It is a moment to come together, as the governor mentioned earlier, to celebrate the legacy and the values that our veterans fought to protect. While some might think Memorial Day is the start of summer or a 3-day weekend, we gather here in Seneca County, the birthplace of Memorial Day, to recognize its true significance. It is a day to come together, not only to mourn the loss of our heroes, but to celebrate their legacy and the values they fought to protect. I'm honored to be standing here on this hallowed ground that was officially designated as New York's first Veterans Cemetery. I was deeply honored to learn one of my constituents, who recently passed, was the first burial after the official transfer here in what we now call the New York State Veterans Cemetery, Finger Lakes. Gary Katz served honorably during the Vietnam War and was familiar with this land long before it was a cemetery, as he raised his family not far from here, just minutes away in Varick, New York. And what a fitting honor that his granddaughter, Josephine, is here today. It's wonderful to see the next generation continuing to honor those who have fallen for our freedoms. They are selfless heroes who stepped forward when our nation called and fought to defend our liberties and the principles upon which our great nation was founded: freedom, justice, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Let us make this day a celebration of the ideals that bind us together as one: freedom and democracy. We're part of a larger family, a nation that stands indivisible, and strives for one unity, empathy, and compassion for all. Together, we must stand shoulder to shoulder, united against injustice, hatred, and tyranny. We're committed to carrying the torch of freedom forward in the honor of the fallen soldiers before us. Their bravery and courage will serve the front lines of justice, so peace may prevail and be remembered for many generations to come. May our celebrations strengthen the bonds and resolve our community and our nation throughout the entire year. Thank you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Our next speaker, Assemblyman Palmisano, is an Army veteran, and he is, Magdalo, I'm sorry. You know, I screwed this up earlier today, too. And I said, I'm not going to mess it up, and I did. But Assemblyman Magdalo is an Army veteran, and he just told me members of his family are also serving. And he's the ranking member of the Veterans Committee in Albany. So he'll be our next speaker. Thank you for being here.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and Deputy Commissioner, thank you. I know Phil and I look much alike, but we tend to fit both ways. So, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. Thank you for allowing us to be here. Madam Governor, thank you for taking the time to come to upstate New York to Seneca County, and I've seen you on the canal many different times over the years and on Lake Ontario. So thank you for everything you do, and thank you for being there for our veterans. It's truly an honor for you to be here today for all of us, and thank you for your commitment to our veterans and to the state. Thank you, Madam. So this is the third event that I've spoke at today, and I could say a lot of things about the men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifice. But I want to tell you something about our new commissioner. Commissioner, do you remember where you and I met? So we were in the Legislative Office Building. I think we were honoring the anniversary for the Korean War. And I met this young lady, and she stood up, and I introduced myself, and she told me who she was. And the thing that stood out the most about the commissioner was, you remember the dress you were wearing? It was a camouflage fatigue dress that she was wearing. And I said, Governor, you couldn't have done a better job of picking someone to lead us. And, by the way, I have 2 boys that are Marines. My daughter's married to a Marine. I'm just an Army guy, but God bless you and thank you for your service. You're welcome. But more on the somber moment. Today is Memorial Day, and I'd like to share just 2 stories. I've had several, but I'll share just 2 quick ones. As we walked in, you could see the Gold Star Mother's Monument here in the center. And last year, when I was in one of the ceremonies on Memorial Day, I met a Gold Star mom. And I had the chance to sit next to her and talk with her, share a few tears with her. And I had a chance to put my arm on her because she was telling me that she had just lost her first son. And she was going through this. And she says, Brian, that's really hard. The second part that's really hard is I still have another son that's in the military. I put my arm around her. I hugged her. I cried with her. I said, ma'am, we're going to do everything we can as a nation, as a state, that we honor your son that gave it all, and that we can do everything we can to bring your other son back home safely. She hugged me, thanked me, and she says, Brian, Memorial Day is every day in our home. And the second thing I'd just like to talk about really quick. Last week in the town of Rose out in Wayne County, we had a chance to honor a World War II veteran. His name was John B. Thomas. He was actually buried in a cemetery in France for 80 years. He was a pilot of a B-24 Liberator, and their mission of that day was to go into Germany and take out the oil fields that fueled Germany's drive in the war. Unfortunately, that day, he didn't come back. And for 80 years, that family didn't know what had happened to that individual, to that pilot. 80 years. Think about the things that that individual missed. Hula hoops, frisbees, cell phones, Burger King, McDonald's, electric cars, you name it, that individual missed it all. Not only for his family, but for all of us. And when we were leaving that cemetery that day, much like Assemblyman Palmisano said earlier, one of the family members came up to me and said this. He gave his yesterday for all of our tomorrows. So to think about these men and women that serve and give the ultimate price is what we should be doing today. And again, having this cemetery here in Seneca County, here in New York State, and the drive that our leadership has brought here, and former Senator Nozzolio for his drive, thank you, Mike. It just speaks volume of who we are as New Yorkers. And I can promise you, between the governor, assembly members, senators, we are here to take care of our veterans, their families, and everything we do. So let's be the leader of this country, let New York State lead for our veterans, and may we do everything we can for the ones that give the ultimate sacrifice and their families. So thank you for allowing me just to say a few words, and it's most humbling, and I just thank you for this day, And may God bless all of you, your families, and may God bless America. Thank you.
I think I got all the tough names out of the way now. The next person we have speaking, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for what I hear, his initiative and drive. So I would like to introduce right now retired State Senator Mike Gazzolio.
Thank you very much, Joel. Ladies and gentlemen, memory is the most important form of honor. We honor the heroism, sacrifices, and service by remembering them. And that's why Memorial Days are so important. And today is an extremely special Memorial Day for those of us who've been on a journey to create the first New York State Veterans Cemetery. It's culminated, but began just a few short miles from here as the crow flies, but took over a quarter century to realize. On this day, we give thanks, we remember, and give permanent honor to those of our nation's veterans. Special thanks is involved today, though. First, to the New York State Department of Veterans Services, and especially Commissioner Viviana DeCohen, herself an outstanding individual, as Governor Hochul mentioned, an honored veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and one who has led her department in establishing this as the very first New York State Veterans Cemetery. It's an historic ceremony, and we want to thank the Commissioner and her department for all they've done. Deputy Executive Commissioner Cohen, Joel Evans, Attorney Fishbein, and Commissioner, if you could allow Deputy Commissioner Pomerantz to come back each and every year for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem. That was terrific. Last week, I had a wonderful opportunity to personally thank Governor Hochul and Commissioner DeCohen for their work in establishing the cemetery. Today, I ask all of you to join with me in a singular round of applause for the governor of the state, who stood fast, who assisted us in the process, who assisted us in making this cemetery a reality, and the fact that she's here today says volumes about her commitment. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate all you have done. Thank you. Many mentioned Waterloo. It's very fitting we're celebrating this inaugural ceremony, Memorial Day, at the resting place that is so designated as New York State's first. As we're in the shadow of the birthplace of Memorial Day, it was mentioned that Commissioner Brian Stratton of the Canal Corporation is here today. What was not mentioned is that many years ago, Commissioner Stratton's father, Congressman Sam Stratton, represented Seneca County and many other counties in the Finger Lakes region. And he alone was responsible for providing the historical documentation and achieving the national designation that recognized Waterloo as the birthplace of Memorial Day. Let's all thank Director Stratton for his father's great work in achieving that objective. Commissioner mentioned how we are standing on hallowed ground. Can you imagine thousands and thousands of people here every day in a very active way, first during World War II, in preparing our Navy sailors for battle, and then after World War II to prepare airmen and Air Force personnel for battles that existed from World War II well into the Gulf War. Yes, Sampson is a place of hallowed ground, and for that we were extremely grateful. As the governor mentioned, our historic roots here, and now establishing a cemetery on this hallowed ground. The idea was an idea of Steve Bull from my hometown of Seneca Falls. Some of you knew him. He wanted this to be a veteran cemetery. We took that idea and kept it alive after Steve's passing. He entrusted us with the responsibility, and the veterans of World War II who trained at Sampson, to make this ground a final resting place so that people would remember. I thank those countless veterans across our state, across our nation, who shared this dream, who worked with us tirelessly and faced many what were at the time insurmountable challenges. Albany and Washington told us it was impossible to establish the cemetery here, that it could not be done. We ultimately, though, prevailed because we knew this was the right thing to do. And we knew that just because someone said no, we refused to take no for an answer. That as we worked together, it was a labor of love. There were many who worked in it throughout the processes, from enacting special legislation to acquire the land needed from New York State, which was once earmarked as a prison, to the extensive uphill process of securing over $6 million to design the cemetery, clear the land, begin construction, and make renovations. We're a neighbor to the barge canal system because the cemetery land, you're seeing only a small portion of it here. There's 165 acres. There will be room for over 100,000 burials. We neighbor the canal, the beautiful Sampson State Park, and that our neighbors have been the parks. And throughout the process, Commissioner Eric Kulisad was mentioned, but I'd like to mention a deputy commissioner, one who worked with us for years and years and years on this project. He's here today, Fred Bond from Finger Lakes Park. Fred, thank you so much for your work and your efforts. We talked about renovations. That building behind you was cleared after taking all the vines and trees and everything that grew over it. It was once the firehouse for the base. And now you can see and take a moment to look at it. It's a beautiful shelter, a beautiful chapel, one that we're very proud of as a permanent fixture, yet part of the historic and the heritage here at Sampson. Mitch Rowe, who's seated at the aisle, has been our outstanding Seneca County manager. Thank you, Mitch, for all your great work. Chairman Bob Shipley and Chairman Bob Heisen, through your tenure to the Seneca County Board of Supervisors, were active, not just involved at a casual basis, but participated in ceremonies here with us many years, who worked on a task force for us together to make this happen. We had assemblymen in a bipartisan way, Assemblyman Kolb, Phil Pomisano, the late Gary Finch, Jeff Gallahan, and a great friend who crossed the aisle in Albany, which is all too often not the case. But former Assemblyman and now Congressman Joe Morelli and I passed the legislation, worked on it together. Vinny Esposito was working with it at the time. Thank you, Vinny, and thank you for getting that legislation passed that created the land that allowed the cemetery to be placed. I'd be remiss if I didn't say how fate brought us, I say from on high. Some may not agree with me, but he has been a tremendous asset to the cemetery. That a Navy veteran, one who was also an undertaker, a combination that was destined to serve in this great area. Bill Yale. Bill, where's Bill? Bill, thank you so much for everything you have done. A special thanks to the original committee members, Don Lindbergh, who's here today, Carm Pasquarello, and Rick Connors, who are in the New York State Veterans Hall of Fame because of their efforts here to help Sampson. Don, thank you. Rick and Carm, congratulations for a job well done. This work concluded. We were given the challenge. We were given the challenge of having to comply and compete. It wasn't a done deal until the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs indicated and the governor indicated it was a final deal. But the fact was we had to compete. And we competed with at least a dozen other applicants across the state. That it was the wisdom of then Chairman Bob Shipley and Bob Heisen, who worked with us, to create a task force. And I want to list the members of the task force, and I ask you to hold your applause, but collectively, they deserve that recognition. Michael Bowen, U.S. Marine Corps, former president of the New York State American Legion. Menzo Case, president, and I stand while their names are mentioned. Menzo Case, president and CEO of Generations Bank. Dewey Fellers, commander, New York Navy, U.S. Navy. Linda Fellers, captain, U.S. Navy. Yes, they are husband and wife, and yes, as fitting the case, Linda outranks Dewey. Joan Sullivan Grilla, former New York State Senate, retired. Robert Heisen, chair of the Seneca County Board of Supervisors. Doug Logan, veteran sports broadcaster and veterans advocate. Robert Nye, president, Finger Lakes Community College, colonel, U.S. Army, retired. Dr. Ken Padgett, former president of New York Chiropractic College, who trained at the Sampson Air Force Base. Mitch Rowe, Seneca County manager. Jane Sessler Schaefer, president of Sessler Companies, founder and major supporter of Waterloo Memorial Day activities. Robert Shipley, chair, Seneca County Board of Supervisors. Mike Smith, Navy veteran, IBEW, Finger Lakes Building Trades advocate. Bruce Tuxell, general, United States Air Force, retired. Bill Yale, Navy veteran, director, the Sampson Veterans Committee. Richard West, admiral, U.S. Navy, retired. David and Darlene Dupre, Dupre Video Productions. And yours truly, Mike Nozzolio, former New York State Senator, Lieutenant, JAG Corps, U.S. Navy Reserve, and Lieutenant Commander, New York Naval Militia. Thank you to all task force members for putting together a world-class application. And Governor, if there's any doubt or any question, please take a look at the link of the video we presented and put together. Dave and Darlene, we're our production consultants, put together to make this cemetery acceptable. And I hope you look at it and are proud of the decision made. Governor, there's very few things in government that we do in perpetuity, for eternity. Buildings change, programs change, things are changed in government to meet times. But this final resting place is a place perpetual and for eternity. And thank you for making it so. This dream come true. And thank you all. It's an honor to be with you.
And now we're going to do the presentation of the wreath with the governor and our commissioner.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated during the laying of the wreath.
the Ovid, New York, VFW, and American Legion. We'll do the rifles and taps.
Order, march. Parade, rest.
Benjamin Pomeranz.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. 'Twas blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. 'Twas blind, but now I see.
You may be seated. Hard to follow that, right? Senator Nozzolio gave us history of the cemetery, 25 years of history. And a lot of people were involved in this one way or another. And we can't recognize them all. You did a great job in mentioning many of them. And we applaud every single one of them for the efforts and the time that they sacrificed to get to this point. And like Commissioner DeCohen said, we as a state will make sure that you left this in good hands, and we'll take care of it. We're very proud of this cemetery. We're also proud of 3 individuals, right, who were involved in this process. One of them, sitting next to me, but he doesn't know, Mitch Rowe. Could you come over here? Thank you, Mitch.
And Mitch, you know you're a veteran, and we know that your dad in here, and to all of you, this is truly for putting your hand to the plow and pushing with your shoulder always. For the veteran service never ends. God and country, family, and it extends to the community, and we're so glad that you're part of this community. Thank you so much.
And then they were also mentioned, and for the last, I think he said 13 years, they've been operating this cemetery. Bill Yale and Dave, could you both come up here? Dave Harrington. Bill and Dave have been taking care of the cemetery for the past 13 years, and we took them on as part of the DVS team, and they'll continue taking care of it for however long they can.
Till we retire.
Thank you very much. And now with the final words, Commissioner Viviana DeCohen.
Listen, we want to thank all of you so much. First of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for answering the call to do what you do. Thank you for supporting us and truly putting your hand to the plow and pushing. I tell people it doesn't take one of us. It doesn't take an agency. It doesn't take an organization. It takes all of us. So thank you for truly putting your hand to the plow and pushing with your shoulder to ensure that our veterans deserve. What do they deserve? Everything. Thank you so much to our esteemed and honorable governor, our first gentleman, to all of you on the program. Thank you so much to this amazing team, to our beautiful troopers. Listen, take time and listen, hug somebody and tell them that we remember today. We remember. We are standing atop so many shoulders that are not here today, but today we remember. Thank you.
Reverend Binkowitz with the benediction.
Hear our prayer for all who have died in service to our country, whose hearts and hopes are known to you alone. Hear our prayer for those brave men and women who have put the welfare of others ahead of their own, and give us hearts as generous as theirs. Hear our prayer for the brave soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard personnel who, in service of others, gave the ultimate sacrifice, and may we be worthy to accept their gift and their sacrifice. Comfort those who grieve the loss of their loved ones, and let your healing be the hope in our hearts. Hear our prayer this day and every day, and in your mercy answer us in the name that is holy to all. Amen.
This concludes our ceremony. Thank you for your attendance, and God bless you all.